The night is quiet. There is a soft stillness in the air, like the moment just before sleep gently arrives. The world feels far away. Inside, the rooms are quiet. A few woven mats, clay jars, baskets filled with grain or tools. Nothing is wasted. Everything has its place. The days move slowly here. Before the flood season begins, the land is dry. The fields are firm underfoot. Cracks sometimes form in the soil, thin lines spreading across the ground like gentle patterns. The air is warm, and the sky is wide and open. The farmers wake early. They rise with the first light, when the horizon is still soft and pale. The sun lifts slowly, bringing warmth that grows stronger as the day continues. There is no rush in their movements. Everything is done with quiet purpose. They step outside and feel the earth beneath their feet. They look toward the river, because everything depends on it. The flood will come. It always does. And when it comes, it will change everything. Far to the south, beyond what most farmers will ever see, heavy rains fall in distant lands. The water gathers slowly, filling streams and rivers that feed into the Nile. It takes time. Many days. Many weeks. The farmers do not see this. But they feel its approach. The river begins to rise. At first, it is almost unnoticeable. The water edges a little higher against the banks. The current becomes slightly fuller, slightly deeper. The color of the river begins to change, turning from clear blue to a darker shade, carrying fine silt from faraway places. The farmers watch carefully. They have learned to read these signs over many generations. Fathers teach sons. Mothers show daughters. Knowledge passes quietly, like the river itself. They do not speak of it loudly. They simply notice. And they prepare. Tools are gathered. Simple tools, worn smooth from use. Wooden hoes. Stone blades. Baskets woven from reeds. Everything is checked, repaired, and placed where it can be easily reached. The fields are cleared. Any remaining plants from the last harvest are removed. The ground is smoothed as much as possible. Boundaries between plots are reinforced with small ridges of earth. These ridges will help guide the water when the flood arrives. The work is steady and unhurried. There is no need to rush. The river will come in its own time. As the days pass, the water continues to rise. The farmers walk along the river banks and watch as the edge creeps farther inland. The sound of the river becomes slightly louder, a deeper, fuller presence in the quiet landscape. Birds gather near the water. White birds with long legs step carefully through the shallows. They move slowly, searching for small fish or insects carried by the changing current. Their reflections ripple gently across the surface. The air feels different now. There is a faint scent of wet earth. It is soft and rich, almost comforting. The farmers notice this too. Then, one morning, the change becomes clear. The river has stepped beyond its usual path. Water spreads slowly over the land. At first, it is shallow. Thin sheets of water move quietly across the fields, filling low places, soaking into the soil. The earth begins to darken as it drinks. The farmers stand and watch. There is no fear in their eyes. Only quiet understanding. This is what they have been waiting for. The flood season has begun. As the water continues to rise, the fields disappear beneath a calm, wide layer of water. What was once dry ground becomes a shallow lake that stretches across the land. The surface is smooth, broken only by gentle ripples and the tops of boundary ridges that still remain visible. The farmers no longer work the fields. There is nothing to plant now. Nothing to harvest. The land rests beneath the water. And so do they. This is a different kind of season. A slower one. A quieter one. The farmers turn their attention to other tasks. Inside their homes, daily life continues in soft, steady rhythms. Grain that was stored from the previous harvest is carefully measured and used. Bread is made slowly, shaped by hand, and baked in simple clay ovens. The smell of baking bread drifts through the air. Warm. Gentle. Familiar. It is a comforting scent, one that fills the home and settles softly into the evening. Fishing becomes more important now. With the flood waters spread across the land, fish move into new areas. They swim through places that were once fields, exploring the fresh water and feeding on what they find. The farmers use small boats. Simple wooden boats that glide quietly over the flooded land. They move slowly, using long poles or simple paddles to guide their way. Nets are cast gently into the water. There is no sudden movement. No loud sound. Only the soft splash of water and the quiet patience of waiting. When the nets are lifted, they sometimes carry small silver fish that shimmer briefly in the light before being placed into baskets. This is careful work. Steady work. Children watch and learn. They sit quietly in the boats or stand near the edges of the water, observing every movement. They learn how to hold the nets, how to read the water, how to move without disturbing the surface too much. No one rushes them. There is time. There is always time. The days pass in a gentle rhythm. Morning light spreads slowly across the water. The flooded fields reflect the sky, creating a soft mirror that shifts with each ripple. The air is warm, but not harsh. At midday, the sun sits high, and everything becomes still. Even the birds grow quiet. The farmers rest in the shade of their homes. Some lie down on woven mats. Others sit and mend tools or baskets, their hands moving slowly and carefully. There is no urgency. Only calm repetition. In the evening, the air cools. A soft breeze moves across the water, carrying the scent of the river. The surface glows with the fading light, turning shades of gold and deep orange. Voices are low. Conversations are simple. Stories are shared quietly, passed from one person to another like small, steady currents. The flood continues. Day after day, the water remains. It does not rush away. It lingers. And in that stillness, something important is happening beneath the surface. The water carries fine particles of dark soil. Silt. It settles slowly, sinking through the water and resting on the fields below. Layer by layer, it builds, creating a soft, fertile ground that will nourish the next season's crops. The farmers know this. They do not need to see it. They trust the river. And so, during the flood season, life becomes quieter. Slower. More inward. The land sleeps beneath the water. And the people move gently with the rhythm of the river, waiting without worry, knowing that in time, the waters will recede. And when they do, the fields will return. Soft. Dark. Ready. The night deepens again. The river moves quietly under the stars. And the farmers rest, carried gently by the steady, unchanging flow of time. The night slowly gives way to morning. The darkness softens, not all at once, but gently, like a quiet curtain being drawn back. A pale light spreads across the horizon. It touches the surface of the water first, turning it into a smooth sheet of silver. The flooded land is still. There is no wind yet. No movement except for the slow drift of the river beneath the surface. It is calm in a way that feels deep and steady. A bird calls in the distance. Another answers. And the day begins again. In the village, people wake slowly. There is no sudden start to the morning. No sharp sounds. Only the soft movements of daily life returning. A door opens. Feet step onto packed earth. A clay jar is lifted carefully and set down again. The air carries a faint coolness, a reminder of the night that has just passed. A man walks toward the water's edge. He has done this many times before. His steps are unhurried. The ground is still damp beneath his feet, softer now than it was before the flood came. In some places, water has settled into shallow pools, reflecting the sky above. He stops where the land meets the water. But now, that boundary is not clear. The edge has moved. What was once a field is now part of the river's quiet reach. He stands and looks. The surface is smooth, broken only by small ripples that travel slowly outward. Beneath that calm surface, the current continues its unseen work, carrying silt, shaping the future of the land. The man does not need to think about it. He simply watches. Behind him, the village begins to stir. A woman kneels near a low stone surface. She grinds grain slowly, moving her hands in a steady rhythm. The sound is soft and repetitive, like a quiet echo of time itself. Grain becomes flour. Flour becomes bread. The process is simple, but it requires care. Nearby, a child sits and watches. Not speaking. Just observing. Learning without being told. The child traces small shapes in the dust with a finger, then looks up again, following each movement of the woman's hands. The flood has changed the shape of the land, but it has also changed the rhythm of the day. There is less work in the fields. But there is still work. There is always work. A group of men gathers near the edge of the village. They stand beside a small wooden boat. The boat is simple, its surface worn smooth from years of use. It rests lightly on the water, held in place by a rope tied to a wooden post. They check the ropes. They run their hands along the edges of the boat, feeling for cracks or weak places. One man presses gently against the wood, listening for any sound that might tell him something is not right. Everything is quiet. Everything is steady. They nod to each other. No words are needed. They step into the boat one by one. The water moves slightly as their weight settles in. Small ripples spread outward, touching the edges of what used to be fields. A long wooden pole dips into the water. With a slow push, the boat begins to move. It glides forward. The flooded land stretches wide. What was once divided into small sections is now one continuous surface of water. Only the highest ridges remain visible, faint lines beneath the surface or just above it. The men move carefully. They know this land well, even when it is hidden. They remember where the ground rises slightly, where deeper channels might be, where the water flows more strongly. They do not rush. There is no need. They begin to fish. A net is lifted slowly from the bottom of the boat. It is made of simple fibers, tied together with care. Each knot has been placed by hand. The net is cast outward. It spreads in the air for a moment, then settles gently onto the water. There is a soft sound as it touches the surface, then nothing again. They wait. The boat drifts slightly. Time passes in a quiet, steady way. Back in the village, other tasks continue. A man sits near the doorway of his home, working with a piece of wood. He shapes it slowly, using a simple tool. Each movement is careful. Small pieces fall away, gathering at his feet. He is making a handle. Perhaps for a tool that will be needed when the water retreats. Perhaps for something else. He does not hurry. There is time to do it well. Nearby, a woman repairs a basket. The reeds are slightly worn, but still strong. She bends them gently, weaving them back into place. Her fingers move with quiet skill, guided by habit and memory. The basket will be used again. Nothing is thrown away if it can still serve a purpose. Children move along the edges of the water. They walk slowly, watching where they step. In some places, the ground is firm. In others, it gives slightly under their weight. They notice small things. A fish moving just beneath the surface. A bird stepping carefully through the shallow water. The way the light reflects differently in each small ripple. They do not need to be told to pay attention. They simply do. The sun rises higher. The light grows warmer. The air becomes still again. At midday, the village rests. The heat settles over everything. The water reflects the brightness of the sky, creating a soft glow that fills the air. There are fewer sounds now. Even the birds seem to pause. People return to their homes. They sit in the shade or lie down on woven mats. The walls of the houses hold a quiet coolness inside, offering relief from the sun. Breathing slows. Movements become even more gentle. This is a time of waiting. But it is not empty. It is filled with small, steady moments. In one home, a man and a woman sit together in silence. Between them is a small bowl of food. They eat slowly, without speaking. Each bite is taken with care. Outside, the water remains still. Inside, the air is calm. As the day begins to soften again, the heat slowly fades. A breeze moves across the water. It is light, but noticeable. The surface shifts slightly, breaking the still reflection of the sky. The village begins to wake again. The men return with the boat. It moves slowly toward the shore. The net is lifted. There are fish inside. Not many. But enough. They are placed into a basket carefully, without waste. Everything is done with quiet attention. Evening arrives. The sky changes color slowly. From bright white to soft gold. From gold to deep orange. From orange to a calm, fading blue. The water reflects it all. People gather outside their homes. They sit together, speaking in low voices. Some tell stories. Others simply listen. The sounds are soft. There is no rush to fill the silence. The flood remains. Day after day, the water continues to cover the land. But beneath that water, the earth is changing. The silt settles slowly. Layer upon layer. Building a foundation for what will come next. The farmers trust this process. They have seen it many times. They do not question it. They simply live alongside it. The night returns once more. Stars appear above the wide, quiet river. The air cools gently. The sounds of the day fade away. And once again, the village rests. Carried softly by the rhythm of the Nile River. Waiting. Without worry. Without hurry. Knowing that the water will remain for a while longer. And that in time, it will slowly begin to fade away. The days continue to pass in a quiet and steady rhythm. Morning comes softly, as it always does. The light spreads slowly across the water, touching its surface with a pale glow. The flooded land reflects the sky, creating a wide, gentle mirror that seems to stretch without end. There is no sharp beginning to the day. Only a gradual awakening. The air is calm. A thin mist sometimes rises from the water in the early hours, drifting slowly and then fading as the sun climbs higher. It moves so gently that it is almost unnoticed, like a breath that comes and goes without effort. The village wakes again. Feet step lightly across the ground. Doors open with quiet care. The sounds are small, but they are enough to mark the beginning of another day. A man sits outside his home. He has brought with him a bundle of reeds. They are long and flexible, gathered earlier and left to dry. Now, in the quiet of the morning, he begins to work with them. His hands move slowly, bending and shaping each reed into place. He is making a mat. The pattern forms gradually, one strand crossing another, held together by simple knots. There is no rush in his movements. Each piece is placed with care, as if time itself is wide and open. He pauses sometimes. Not because he is tired, but because there is no need to hurry forward. Nearby, another man works with rope. He twists fibers together, strengthening them by hand. The rope will be used for many things: tying boats, securing tools, holding together parts of daily life that must remain steady even as the water moves. The rope grows longer, inch by inch. His hands follow a familiar rhythm. Twist. Pull. Adjust. Twist. Pull. Adjust. The pattern continues, quiet and steady. The flood water remains spread across the land. It has reached its full height now. The rise has slowed. The water no longer creeps forward each day, but instead rests in place, covering the fields in a wide, calm layer. This is the deepest part of the flood season. From a distance, the land and the river seem to become one. There is no clear line between them. Only water, reflecting sky. The farmers understand this stage well. It is a time of stillness. A pause in the cycle. The land is hidden, but not lost. It waits beneath the water, gathering what the river has brought. Boats move slowly across this quiet landscape. They glide through areas that were once rows of crops. The memory of those rows remains in the minds of the farmers, even if they cannot be seen. A man guides his boat carefully. He remembers where the ground rises slightly beneath the surface. He knows where deeper channels run. His knowledge is not written down. It lives within him, shaped by years of watching, walking, and working the land. He does not need markers. The land is familiar, even when unseen. Fishing continues. The nets are cast and lifted. Sometimes they return full. Sometimes they do not. There is no frustration in this. Only acceptance. The river gives what it will. At the edge of the village, a woman fills a clay jar with water. She kneels carefully, dipping the jar beneath the surface. The water flows in slowly, clear and cool. She lifts the jar with steady hands and places it beside her. This is water for drinking, for cooking, for daily use. Even though the land is covered, life continues in small, necessary ways. Children gather near the shallows. They stand close together, watching small fish move between their feet. The water is warm from the sun, and the mud beneath is soft. They step carefully. Each movement leaves a faint cloud in the water that slowly drifts away. They laugh quietly, not loudly, but with a soft joy that matches the calm around them. The sun rises higher. The day grows warm again. The stillness returns at midday. People retreat into the shade. The walls of their homes offer a quiet coolness. Inside, the light is softer. Sounds are muted. A man lies down on a woven mat. His eyes close slowly. The outside world continues, but he rests within it, carried gently by the rhythm of the day. In another home, a woman prepares food. She works slowly, grinding grain into flour, mixing it with water, shaping it into small pieces that will be baked. The movements are familiar, repeated many times before. There is comfort in repetition. Each step flows into the next without thought. The smell of baking rises again. Warm and steady. It fills the space, then drifts outside, blending with the scent of water and earth. The afternoon passes quietly. The light softens. Shadows grow longer. The surface of the water begins to glow with a softer tone. In the distance, birds return. They move in slow patterns across the sky, their wings catching the fading light. Some settle near the water's edge, standing still as they watch for movement beneath the surface. The land feels calm, unhurried. As evening approaches, the village becomes more active again. People step outside. They gather in small groups. Conversations begin, soft and low. Stories are shared. Not grand stories, but simple ones. Memories of past floods. Observations about the river. Small details of daily life. The words move gently, like the water itself. An older man speaks quietly. His voice is steady. He has seen many flood seasons. He remembers years when the water rose higher, and years when it did not rise enough. He speaks not with worry, but with calm reflection. The others listen. There is no need to interrupt. The story unfolds slowly. The sky changes again. Colors deepen. Gold becomes orange. Orange fades into a soft blue. And then into the quiet darkness of night. The stars appear above the wide, still water. Their reflections shimmer gently on the surface, broken only by the smallest movements of the current. The air cools. A soft breeze moves through the village. People return to their homes. They settle into rest. The sounds of the day fade away. The flood remains. Still. Patient. Unmoving on the surface, but always working below. The silt continues to settle. Grain by grain. Layer by layer. Preparing the land for what will come. The farmers do not see this work. But they trust it. They always have. And so, as the night deepens once more, the village rests in quiet understanding. The river flows gently beside them. The land sleeps beneath the water. And time moves forward, slow and steady, without hurry. Carried softly by the rhythm of the Nile River. The rhythm of the flood does not change quickly. It moves in long, slow stretches of time, where one day feels much like the one before it. The water remains spread across the land, calm and steady, holding the fields beneath its quiet surface. Morning comes again, softly. A pale light drifts across the wide water, touching it gently. The reflections shift as the sky brightens, but the stillness remains. The village wakes in the same quiet way. There is no urgency. Only the slow return of movement. A man steps outside his home and pauses. He listens. Not for anything in particular, but for the feeling of the day. The air is calm. The breeze is light. The water, though unseen from where he stands, makes its presence known in the distance. He walks slowly toward it. The ground beneath him feels familiar, even though it has changed. Some paths are no longer visible. Others have softened. But his steps are careful, guided by memory. He reaches the edge where the land fades into water. He stands there for a while, watching. The level of the flood has settled. It no longer rises as it did before. Now, it simply remains. Wide. Still. Patient. The farmers understand this quiet stage. They know that this is the middle of the flood season, when the land rests completely beneath the water. It is a time when there is little to do in the fields, and so life turns inward. Work continues, but it is softer now. More focused on small things. Inside the village, a group of men gather near a shaded area. They sit close together, each with a small task in their hands. One repairs a wooden tool, smoothing its surface with careful movements. Another ties fibers into rope, pulling and twisting with steady rhythm. A third man shapes a piece of clay. He turns it slowly, forming a simple container. His fingers press gently into the surface, smoothing out any uneven edges. The clay responds easily, still soft from the water it holds. These objects will be used later. When the flood has passed. When the land returns. There is no need to rush their making. Nearby, women sit together, working quietly. They weave reeds into baskets, their hands moving in patterns learned long ago. The reeds bend and cross, forming shapes that are both simple and strong. The baskets will carry grain. They will hold fish. They will store tools and food. Each one is made with care. Each one is meant to last. Children move between these groups. They watch. They listen. They learn. No one gathers them for lessons. No one gives long explanations. They understand through observation, through quiet repetition, through being present in the slow flow of daily life. The flooded land stretches beyond the village. From a distance, it looks like a wide, calm lake, reflecting the sky above. The edges are soft, blending into the remaining patches of higher ground. Small boats move across the surface. They drift slowly, guided by gentle hands. Fishing continues as it has in the days before. A man stands in his boat, holding a long pole. He pushes it into the water, guiding the boat forward with steady movements. The pole touches the ground beneath the water, even though it cannot be seen. He knows the depth by feel. By the resistance. By the way the pole moves beneath his hands. Another man casts a net. It spreads outward in a slow arc, then settles onto the surface before sinking slightly below. The water closes over it, leaving only faint ripples behind. They wait. There is no impatience. Time moves differently here. Back on the shore, a woman rinses a clay jar. She dips it into the water, lifts it, and turns it slowly, letting the excess drip away. The sunlight catches the droplets as they fall, making them shine for a brief moment before they disappear. She places the jar beside her. Everything is done with care. Nothing is hurried. As the sun rises higher, the warmth begins to settle over the land. The air grows still again. At midday, the quiet deepens. People return to their homes or sit in the shade of simple structures made from reeds and wood. The light outside becomes bright and steady, but inside, it softens. A man lies down. His breathing slows. He closes his eyes, not in deep sleep, but in rest. The world continues around him, but gently, without disturbance. The flood season creates this kind of time. A time when work does not press heavily. A time when waiting is part of life. Not empty waiting, but patient waiting. In one home, an older woman sits alone. In front of her is a small collection of seeds, saved from the last harvest. She sorts them carefully, separating them into small groups. Her hands move slowly. Each seed is examined. Each one is placed with intention. These seeds will be planted when the flood recedes. They carry the future of the fields. She treats them with quiet respect. Outside, the water remains unchanged. It reflects the sky. It holds the land beneath it. It continues its silent work. As the afternoon begins to fade, the light softens once more. The breeze returns. It moves gently across the surface of the water, creating small ripples that travel outward in slow patterns. The air feels lighter, more open. The village begins to stir again. People step outside. They gather in small groups, sitting close together. Their voices are low. Their movements are calm. A man brings out a simple instrument. It is made from wood and stretched fibers. He plucks it gently, creating soft sounds that drip through the air. The notes are slow and spaced apart, leaving room for silence between them. Others listen. No one speaks loudly. The music is quiet. It matches the rhythm of the evening. Children sit nearby. Some lean against their parents. Others watch the sky as its colors change. They do not move quickly. They simply exist within the moment. The sun lowers. Its light becomes warm and golden. The water reflects it, creating a soft glow that stretches across the flooded land. This is a peaceful time. A time when the day begins to release its warmth. A time when everything slows even further. The sky fades into deeper shades. Orange becomes blue. Blue becomes dark. The first stars appear. The village quiets again. People return to their homes. They settle onto woven mats. They close their eyes. The flood remains. Unchanged. Steady. Patient. Beneath the water, the silt continues to settle. It forms a soft layer over the fields, preparing them quietly, without being seen. The farmers trust this process. They do not need to watch it happen. They know it is there. And so, as the night deepens, the land rests beneath the water. The village rests beside it. And the river flows on. Slow. Endless. Carrying time forward in its gentle way. All of it held within the quiet presence of the Nile River. The flood does not leave all at once. It changes slowly. So slowly that, at first, it is almost impossible to notice. But one morning, as the light spreads across the wide surface of the water, something feels slightly different. The river is still calm. The air is still gentle. And yet, the water has begun to shift. A man walks toward the edge of the flooded land, as he has done many mornings before. His steps are careful, guided by memory. He reaches the place where the water once seemed endless. He pauses. And he looks. The surface is still wide. Still quiet. But it no longer reaches quite as far. A small patch of dark earth has appeared. Just a little. Barely more than a thin stretch. But it is there. The flood has begun to recede. There is no announcement. No sudden change. Only this quiet movement backward, as the water slowly returns to the river's deeper channel. The farmers notice. Of course they do. They always notice. But they do not react quickly. They simply observe. Day by day, the change continues. The water withdraws a little more. The edges become clearer. The shape of the land begins to return. The dark soil appears first in small patches. Soft. Smooth. Still wet. It glistens slightly in the morning light, holding the moisture left behind by the flood. The farmers walk carefully across it. Their feet sink slightly with each step. The earth is gentle beneath them. They do not begin working the fields immediately. The land needs time. Time to settle. Time to breathe again after being covered for so long. A man bends down and touches the soil. He presses it lightly between his fingers. It is rich. Darker than before. Finer. The silt has done its work. This is what they have been waiting for. Not the flood itself, but what it leaves behind. The days continue in their slow rhythm. But now, something new begins to enter that rhythm. A quiet sense of preparation. In the village, tools are brought out again. They have been resting, repaired, and cared for during the flood season. Now, they are checked once more. A wooden hoe is lifted. Its surface is smooth from years of use. A man runs his hand along its handle, feeling for any weakness. There is none. It is ready. Baskets are gathered. Ropes are untangled. Seeds, which were carefully sorted and protected, are brought into the light. Each small item has its place in what is to come. The land continues to emerge. More of the fields appear each day. The water retreats slowly, leaving behind shallow pools that will soon dry under the warmth of the sun. The boundaries between plots become visible again. The ridges that were built before the flood now rise clearly above the ground. The farmers walk across their fields. They move slowly. Carefully. They observe everything. There is no rush to begin planting. Not yet. The soil must reach the right balance. Not too wet. Not too dry. A man stands at the edge of his field. He looks out over the dark earth. It stretches before him, smooth and ready. He does not move forward immediately. He simply stands, taking it in. This moment is important. It comes only once each year. The moment when the land returns. Renewed. Nearby, another farmer kneels. He picks up a small handful of soil. He lets it fall slowly through his fingers. It breaks apart easily. Soft. Full of life. The flood has done its work well this season. Children walk across the newly revealed land. They step carefully at first, feeling the softness beneath their feet. Some laugh quietly as the mud gives slightly with each step. They leave faint footprints behind them. Marks that will soon disappear as the ground dries. The sun rises higher each day. Its warmth becomes more noticeable now. The water that remains in shallow pools begins to fade. The earth begins to firm. In the village, conversations shift slightly. There is still calm. Still quiet. But now, there is also quiet purpose. A woman brings out a small container of seeds. She sits in the shade and looks at them. Each seed is small. Simple. But filled with possibility. She does not scatter them yet. She waits. Patience remains important. The flood may be ending, but the rhythm of life has not changed. Everything still moves in its own time. As the days pass, more of the land dries. The surface becomes easier to walk on. The soil remains dark, but it begins to hold its shape more firmly. The farmers begin their first gentle preparations. They walk across their fields with simple tools. They do not dig deeply. Not yet. They only smooth the surface. Break up any uneven patches. Guide the shape of the land once more. The movements are slow, measured. There is no sudden burst of activity. Only a gradual return to work. A man uses his hoe to lightly turn the soil. The sound is soft. A gentle breaking of the surface. He moves forward step by step, not covering much ground at once. There is no need. Nearby, another farmer repairs the edges of his field. The small ridges that help guide water during irrigation are reshaped. He presses the soil with his hands, forming smooth lines. These lines will matter later, when water must be directed carefully. The river continues to withdraw. Its main channel becomes more defined again. The wide floodplain slowly returns to its original shape. Boats are used less often now. They are pulled closer to the shore. Some are lifted onto dry ground. They will be needed again another time. But for now, the land calls the farmers back. The evenings remain peaceful. The sky still glows softly as the sun sets. The air cools gently. People gather, as they always have. But now, their thoughts begin to turn toward the coming season. The planting season. An older man speaks quietly. He talks about the timing. About how the soil must feel. About how the seeds must be placed. His words are slow, careful. The others listen. They do not interrupt. They absorb each detail. The knowledge is passed this way. Not written. Not rushed. But spoken gently, carried from one generation to the next. The night deepens again. The stars return. The air grows still. The flood has almost finished its work. The land is nearly ready. And the farmers rest, as they have rested each night, beside the quiet flow of the Nile River. Waiting. Not with impatience, but with calm understanding. Because soon, very soon, the next stage will begin. And the fields will once again be filled with careful hands, steady movements, and the quiet work of growing life. The water continues to slip away, quietly, and without effort. Each morning reveals a little more of the land. What was once hidden beneath the calm surface now rests open beneath the sky. The fields stretch outward again, dark and smooth, carrying the gentle memory of the flood. The air feels different now. Drier. Lighter. There is still moisture in the soil, but the wide presence of water has begun to fade. The river returns slowly to its deeper path, gathering itself once more into a steady and familiar shape. The farmers rise early. They have always risen early. But now, their steps carry a slightly different intention. The waiting is almost over. A man walks out into his field. The ground beneath him is soft, but firm enough to hold his weight. His feet leave faint impressions that slowly settle back into place. He pauses. He looks across the land. There is a quiet readiness here. Not loud. Not urgent. But present. He lifts his tool. A simple wooden hoe. Its edge meets the soil gently. He presses down. The earth opens easily. This is the beginning. Not a sudden beginning, but a careful one. The farmers begin to prepare the land. They do not rush forward. They move in slow, steady lines across their fields, turning the soil just enough to loosen it. The surface breaks apart into soft pieces, each one ready to receive what will come next. The sound is quiet. A soft rhythm of wood against earth. Nearby, another farmer works in a similar way. Their movements are not perfectly matched, but they follow the same gentle pace. Step. Press. Lift. Move forward. The pattern repeats. There is something calm in this repetition. Something steady. Women move through the fields as well. They carry small baskets. Inside are seeds. Carefully chosen. Carefully saved. Each one holds the memory of the last harvest and the promise of the next. They walk slowly. They pause at certain points. And then, with quiet care, they begin to plant. A hand reaches into the basket. A few seeds are taken. They are placed into the soft soil. Not scattered. Not thrown. But set down with intention. The soil closes gently over them. A light covering. Nothing more. The process continues. Step by step. Row by row. Children watch. Some follow closely, carrying smaller baskets. They learn by doing. By placing seeds into the earth with their own hands. Each movement is guided softly, without pressure. There is time to learn. The sun rises higher. The warmth grows. But the work continues at its slow pace. No one rushes to finish. The land is wide. The work will take many days. In some fields, farmers use simple tools to guide the soil into small ridges and channels. These shapes will help control the water when it is brought back to the fields. Because even though the flood has receded, water will still be needed. Carefully directed. Carefully measured. The river flows nearby. Calm again. Contained within its banks. But always present. Men walk to the river's edge. They fill containers with water. They carry it back to the fields. Slowly. Carefully. Each step measured. In some places, small channels are opened. Water is guided gently from the river into the fields. It moves slowly, following the paths shaped by careful hands. It spreads across the soil. Not too much. Not too little. The seeds rest beneath the surface. They begin their quiet work. Unseen. The farmers do not stand and watch them. They trust the process. Just as they trusted the flood. The days pass in this steady rhythm. Morning work. Midday rest. Evening calm. At midday, the heat returns. The sun sits high above. The air grows still. The farmers step away from the fields. They return to their homes or find shade nearby. They sit. They lie down. They drink water slowly. There is no exhaustion. Only the natural pause that comes with the day's rhythm. In one home, a woman prepares food. The smell of fresh bread rises again. It fills the space softly. A child sits nearby, watching. The same quiet learning continues. Outside, the fields rest for a while. The seeds lie beneath the soil. The water settles. In the afternoon, the work resumes. But gently. Always gently. A man walks along the edge of his field. He checks the flow of water. He adjusts a small ridge with his foot. The water changes direction slightly. It spreads more evenly. He nods to himself. No words. Only understanding. The land responds to care. It always has. As the sun begins to lower, the light softens. The fields take on a warm glow. The dark soil reflects the fading light in a quiet, gentle way. The farmers begin to step away from their work. Not because it is finished, but because the day is. They return to the village. Their steps are slow. Their movements relaxed. In the evening, people gather again. They sit together. They speak softly. there is a sense of calm satisfaction. Not pride. Not excitement. Just a quiet awareness that the work has begun. An older man speaks again. His voice is steady. He talks about the coming days. About how the shoots will appear. Small at first. Almost invisible. The others listen. They have heard this before. But they listen again. The sky changes color. Gold. Orange. Then blue. Then dark. The stars return. The air cools. The village settles into rest once more. The fields lie quiet beneath the night. The seeds rest within the soil. The water moves gently through its channels. And nearby, the Nile River flows on. Steady. Unchanging. Carrying time forward. Holding the rhythm of life in its quiet, endless movement. The flood season has passed. But its presence remains. In the soil. In the water. In the steady hands of the farmers who continue their work, day by day, without hurry. The days settle into a gentle pattern once more. The flood has fully withdrawn now, leaving the land open and wide beneath the sky. The fields, once hidden under calm water, now stretch quietly in dark, even rows. The soil holds the memory of the river, soft and rich, ready to nurture what has been placed within it. Morning arrives as it always does. Softly. Without sound or sudden change. The light spreads slowly across touching the fields, the village, and the flowing path of the Nile River. The farmers rise early. Their movements are calm and familiar. There is no urgency in the way they step outside, no rush in the way they begin their day. The work has already begun, and now it continues in a steady, patient rhythm. A man walks to his field. The ground beneath him is firmer now. The surface has settled, holding its shape with quiet strength. As he steps forward, he notices something small. Very small. At first, it is easy to miss. A tiny green shoot. It rises gently from the soil. Thin. Delicate. Almost fragile. But alive. He pauses. He does not speak. He simply looks. This is the first sign. The first quiet answer to the work that has been done. Across the fields, more shoots begin to appear. Not all at once. Not in perfect lines. But slowly, here and there, small points of green begin to rise from the dark earth. Each one is simple. Each one is enough. The farmers move carefully now. Their steps are lighter. They walk between the rows, making sure not to disturb the young growth. Their work changes again, becoming more watchful, more protective. Water is still needed. But now, it must be guided with greater care. A man stands near a small channel. He watches the water as it flows gently into the field. It moves slowly, spreading across the soil, touching the roots hidden beneath. He adjusts the path slightly. A small ridge is pressed down. The water shifts direction. It moves where it is needed. Nothing is forced. Everything is guided. Nearby, a woman kneels beside the young plants. She looks closely. Her hands hover above the soil, careful not to touch the delicate shoots. She checks the spacing, the condition of the earth, the presence of moisture. She does not stay long. Just enough to understand. Children walk quietly through the fields. They are more careful now. Their steps are slower. They have been told, gently, to watch where they walk. And they do. The village remains calm. Life continues in its steady rhythm. Inside the homes, the same quiet routines unfold. Grain is prepared. Bread is baked. Water is carried. The small tasks that fill each day continue without change. But outside, the land has begun its slow transformation. The green shoots grow a little taller each day. Still small. Still fragile. But steady. The farmers do not rush this growth. They do not try to make it happen faster. They simply care for it. The sun rises. The sun sets. Days pass quietly. At midday, the heat returns as it always does. The farmers step away from the fields. They rest in the shade. Their breathing slows. Their bodies relax. The land rests too. The young plants hold still in the warm air. Their growth continues, even in stillness. In the afternoon, the work resumes. A man walks the length of his field. He watches the plants. He notices small differences. Some areas grow slightly faster. Others need more water. He adjusts what he can. Small changes. Nothing more. This is how the work is done. Not through force, but through attention. As the days continue, the fields begin to change in appearance. The green becomes more visible. More consistent. The dark soil is no longer empty. It holds life across its surface. The wind moves gently through the fields. The young plants respond with the slightest motion. A soft shifting. Barely noticeable. The evenings remain peaceful. The sky softens. The light fades slowly. People gather outside their homes. They sit together. They speak in low voices. A man tells a quiet story. Not a long one. Just a memory. Of a past season. Of a year when the flood came late. Or when the harvest was especially good. The others listen. There is no need for more. The rhythm of life continues. Day after day. The flood season is now part of memory. But its presence remains in everything. In the soil. In the water. In the slow growth of the fields. The farmers carry that memory with them. Not as something they think about, but as something they live within. Night comes again. The stars appear above. The air cools gently. The fields rest. The plants continue their quiet growth. The water moves slowly through its paths. And beside it all, the Nile River flows on. Steady. Patient. Unchanging. Holding the rhythm that guides everything. The farmers rest once more. Their work continues. Slowly. Quietly. Without hurry. And the land responds in the same way. The days move forward in a quiet, even flow. Nothing changes suddenly. Nothing feels rushed. The land, once covered by water, now carries a soft layer of green. The young plants have grown a little taller. They are still delicate, still easily overlooked from a distance, but they are no longer hidden. They have taken their place. Morning comes again with a gentle light. The sky slowly brightens, and the fields receive it without sound. A thin layer of dew sometimes rests on the leaves, small droplets that catch the early light before fading away. A man walks through his field. He moves slowly, placing each step with care. The soil beneath him is firm now, though still soft enough to hold the memory of the flood. As he walks, he looks down. The plants are growing. Not quickly, but steadily. He bends slightly, not to touch, but to see more clearly. Each small leaf opens toward the light. Each stem holds itself upright, even in its early stage. There is strength here. Quiet strength. He continues walking. There is nothing to change at this moment. Only to observe. Across the fields, other farmers do the same. They walk their land. They look. They notice small differences. One area may be slightly drier. Another may hold a little more water. These small differences guide their work. A man pauses near a narrow channel. Water moves slowly through it, reflecting the sky above. He watches how it spreads across the soil, how it reaches the roots beneath. He adjusts the edge with his foot. Just a small movement. The water shifts. It flows more evenly now. This is how the fields are cared for. Through quiet attention. Through small, careful changes. Women move through the fields as well. They carry small baskets, not filled with seeds now, but with simple tools. They remove anything that does not belong among the growing plants. A stray piece of dry grass. A small unwanted growth. They work gently, making sure not to disturb the young crops. Children follow at a distance. They watch. They learn. They understand that this stage is different from planting. This stage requires patience, care, and stillness. The sun rises higher. The warmth returns. The air grows still. At midday, the fields become quiet again. The farmers step away. They rest in the shade. Inside the homes, the familiar rhythms continue. Grain is prepared. Water is poured. Bread is baked slowly. The scent fills the air, soft and comforting. A child sits near the doorway, watching the light shift across the ground, listening to the quiet sounds of the village. There is no need for movement, just presence. Outside, the fields remain calm. The plants do not rush. They grow in silence. In the afternoon, the farmers return. Their steps are steady. Their movements remain slow. A man walks along the edge of his field again. He looks across the rows. The green is more visible now. It stretches further. More even. More complete. He notices a small area where the growth is thinner. He kneels beside it. The soil there feels slightly drier. He stands and walks to the channel. He opens it slightly. Water begins to move toward that part of the field. Slowly. Quietly. He returns to his place. He watches for a moment. Then he moves on. The work continues in this way. Not large actions, but small adjustments. As the days pass, the fields begin to change more clearly. The green deepens. The plants grow taller. They begin to move slightly when the breeze passes through. The land feels alive. Not loudly, but steadily. In the evenings, the village gathers again. People sit outside their homes. The air cools gently. The sky softens into warm colors. Conversations remain quiet. Simple. A man speaks about the growth of his field. Another listens and nods. There is no comparison. No competition. Only shared understanding. An older woman looks out toward the fields. She has seen many seasons. She knows this stage well. She does not need to speak. The sky darkens slowly. The first stars appear. The village grows quiet. People return inside. They settle into rest. The fields lie still beneath the night. The plants continue their silent growth. The water moves gently through its paths. And nearby, the Nile River flows as it always has. Steady. calm, endless. The flood season has passed. But its work remains present in every part of the land. In the soil, in the water, in the growing fields, and in the quiet lives of the farmers who move gently through it all, day after day, without hurry. The passage of time is gentle here. Days do not feel separate from one another. They blend softly, like the colors of the sky at evening. Each morning returns with the same calm light, and each night settles in the same quiet way. The fields continue to grow. The green that once appeared in small, scattered shoots now spreads more evenly across the plants are no longer fragile in the same way. Their stems have strengthened. Their leaves have widened slightly, catching more of the sunlight as it moves slowly overhead. A man walks through his field at the beginning of the day. The air is still cool. The ground holds the faint dampness of the night. He moves carefully between the rows, his steps placed with quiet attention. He does not look far ahead. His gaze stays close to the soil, to the plants, to the small details that guide his work. The plants respond to his care. Not with sound. Not with sudden change. But with steady growth. He pauses. He notices the way the leaves have opened more than they did the day before. He notices how the color has deepened, becoming a richer shade of green. These are small things. But they are enough. Water continues to move through the fields. Not from the flood now, but from careful guidance. Channels carry it slowly from the river. The farmers open and close these paths with simple movements, shaping the flow without force. A man stands beside one of these channels. He watches the water as it moves across the soil. It spreads gently, sinking into the ground, reaching the roots beneath. He presses the edge of the channel with his foot. The water shifts direction. A small change. But it matters. This is how the land is cared for. Not through large actions, but through many small ones. Nearby, a woman walks through her field with quiet steps. She looks for anything that might disturb the growth. A patch where the soil has hardened. A place where water has not reached. She kneels briefly, loosening the surface with her fingers. Then she stands and moves on. Children follow behind at a distance. They are quieter now. More aware. They understand that the plants must be protected. The sun rises higher. The warmth spreads across the land. The air becomes still again. At midday, the fields rest. The farmers step away. They sit in the shade. They drink water slowly. Inside the homes, the same gentle routines continue. The sound of grinding grain. The soft movement of hands shaping dough. The steady rhythm of daily life. A child leans against a wall. Watching. Listening. There is no need to speak. Outside, the plants continue their quiet work. They grow in silence. They respond to light, to water, to the steady care they receive. In the afternoon, the farmers return. The light has softened slightly. The air feels more open. A man walks the edge of his field. He looks across the rows. The green is fuller now. More consistent. He notices how the plants move slightly when a breeze passes through. A gentle shifting. A soft response. The land feels alive in a quiet way. He stops near a section where the water has gathered slightly more than needed. The soil there is darker. More saturated. He bends down. He presses the earth lightly. Then he adjusts the channel nearby, allowing the water to move away. Slowly. Without force. The balance returns. As the days continue, the plants grow taller. Their presence becomes more visible even from a distance. The fields begin to take on a uniform appearance, a soft green surface stretching outward beneath the sky. The farmers walk through them daily. Not to change everything, but to notice, to guide, to care. Evenings remain calm. The sky softens into warm colors. The light fades gently. People gather outside their homes. They sit together in small groups. Their voices are low. Their movements are slow. A man speaks about the water levels. Another listens. There is no urgency in their words. Only quiet sharing. An older woman watches the fields from a distance. She does not move toward them. She has seen this stage many times. She understands it without needing to step into it. The sky darkens. The stars appear. The village becomes quiet again. People return inside. They settle into rest. The fields remain still, growing. The water continues to move gently through its paths. The soil holds its strength. The plants reach upward, slowly, steadily. And beside it all, the Nile River flows on. As it always has. Calm. Endless. Holding the rhythm that guides the land and the people who live upon it. The flood season feels distant now. But its presence remains in every part of the earth. In the richness of the soil. In the steady growth of the fields. And in the quiet understanding of the farmers, who continue their work with patience, moving gently through each day, without hurry. The season continues its slow unfolding. Nothing in the land feels sudden anymore. Everything moves in soft steps, as if the world itself has learned to breathe more gently. The fields are now fully alive with growth. What once began as small, fragile shoots has become a wide, continuous stretch of green. The plants stand closer together now, filling the space between the rows. The soil beneath them is no longer fully visible, only glimpsed in small patches when the wind shifts the leaves apart. Morning light arrives quietly. It spreads across the fields in a soft wash, touching every surface without sound. The dew that gathers overnight still lingers in some places, clinging to leaves before slowly disappearing as the sun rises higher. A man stands at the edge of his field. He does not move immediately. He simply looks. The plants are stronger now. Their stems hold more weight. Their leaves have broadened, forming a soft canopy over the soil below. The field no longer feels empty between the rows. It feels full. He steps forward. His movements are careful, but no longer cautious in the same way as before. The plants can now withstand light contact. They bend slightly when touched, then return to their place. This stage of the season brings a different kind of work. Less about planting. Less about shaping. And more about watching. A woman walks slowly through her section of the field. She carries a small bundle of simple tools, but uses them only when needed. She looks for signs of imbalance. A place where growth is too dense. A place where space is too open. She kneels briefly. Her hand moves gently between the plants. She clears a small patch of competing growth. Nothing more. The rhythm remains calm. Measured. Water still flows through hidden channels beneath and around the fields. But now, it is less visible. It moves quietly, absorbed into the land more fully than before. A man stands at one of the channels. He listens. Not with his ears alone, but with attention. He watches how the soil responds. How quickly it absorbs the water. How evenly it spreads. He makes a small adjustment. A slight shift in the edge. The water responds immediately, but softly. It changes direction without resistance. This is enough. The farmers do not seek to control everything, only to guide what is already moving. Children move through the fields more freely now. The plants are tall enough to brush against their arms as they pass. They walk slowly, careful not to press too hard on the soil. They have learned where to step, and where not to. Sometimes they stop and simply stand among the plants, listening to the wind move through them, watching the leaves shift in small waves. The fields feel alive around them, not in a loud way, but in a steady, continuous presence. At midday, the heat returns again. The sun sits high above. The fields grow still under its warmth. The farmers step away. They rest in shaded places near their homes. Their breathing slows. Their movements become small again. Inside the homes, life remains steady. Grain is ground. Water is poured. Food is prepared without rush. A soft sound of weaving continues in the background. Reeds being shaped. Threads being tightened. Objects being made for later use. Outside, the fields remain unchanged in their slow growth. The plants continue their quiet expansion. In the afternoon, the farmers return once more. The light has shifted slightly. Longer shadows stretch across the ground. A man walks deeper into his field. The plants now reach closer to his waist in some areas. He moves carefully between them, parting them gently when needed. He notices the consistency of growth. Most areas are strong and even. A few remain slightly weaker. He marks these places in memory. No tools are needed for this. Just attention. He continues walking. The field stretches far in every direction. A living green surface under the open sky. As the evening approaches, the light softens again. The green of the fields becomes deeper, richer. The movement of the plants slows with the fading wind. People gather as they always do, sitting near their homes, speaking softly. A man describes the condition of his field. Another responds with a quiet nod. There is no urgency in their exchange, only shared understanding. An older farmer sits apart from the group. He listens more than he speaks. His eyes rest on the fields in the distance. He has seen many cycles like this. He knows how they unfold. The sky shifts. Gold fades into orange. Orange fades into blue. Blue deepens into night. Stars appear once more. The air cools gently. The village grows quiet. People return inside. They settle into rest. The fields remain under the night sky. Still. Full. Growing. The water continues its hidden movement through the land. The soil holds what it has been given. The plants continue their slow rise toward maturity. And beside it all, the Nile River flows steadily onward. Unchanged in its rhythm. Unbroken in its presence. Carrying the same quiet pattern that has shaped the land for generations. The flood is now only a memory beneath the surface of the soil. But its gift remains everywhere. In the richness of the earth. In the strength of the growing fields. In the steady, patient work of the farmers who move through each day without hurry. The season moves forward without asking for attention. It simply continues, like a slow breath that never fully ends. The fields are now in a mature stage of growth. The green is no longer soft or uncertain. It has become deeper, fuller, more settled. The plants stand close together, forming long, quiet waves that shift when the wind passes through them. From a distance, the land looks unified, like one living surface beneath the sky. Morning light spreads gently once again. It arrives without noise, touching the tops of the plants first, then slowly reaching down toward the soil. The fields respond with subtle movement, a soft sway that travels through the rows like a quiet ripple. A man walks along the edge of his land. He no longer stops at every small detail. Now, he observes from within a steady understanding. The plants are strong enough to stand on their own. But they still require care. Always care. He steps into the field. The plants brush against him as he moves forward. They bend slightly, then return upright once he passes. His presence does not disturb them. It moves with them. In this stage of the season, the work becomes lighter in action but deeper in attention. A farmer does not need to change much now. He only needs to notice. A woman walks slowly through another section of the field. She carries no tools today. Only her eyes. She looks across the rows. She notices where the plants lean slightly more toward one side. She notices where growth is thicker, where it is thinner. She does not rush to correct anything. She simply understands what she sees. Water continues to flow quietly beneath the surface systems. It is no longer a visible presence across the land, but it is still there, moving through carefully shaped paths, reaching the roots that lie hidden below. A man kneels near one of these channels. He watches the flow carefully. The water is slower now than before. More controlled. More measured. He adjusts a small ridge. Just slightly. The water shifts in response. It spreads more evenly into the soil. He sits back on his heels for a moment. And then stands. No further action is needed. The fields stretch wide in every direction. The green is now consistent across most areas. Only small differences remain. Subtle variations in growth that only careful eyes would notice. Children move through the edges of the fields. They are quieter than before. More aware of where they step. The plants are taller now, and they walk between them carefully, sometimes brushing against the leaves that reach out into their path. They pause occasionally. Watching insects move across the stems. Watching the wind shift the surface of the field. There is no instruction needed for this. Only presence. At midday, the sun settles directly above the land. The fields grow still under its weight of light. The farmers step away. They return to shade. To rest. To silence. Inside the homes, the same quiet rhythm continues. Food is prepared slowly. Water is shared. Tools are checked and set aside. A woven mat is repaired in one corner of a home. A man and woman sit together, working without speaking. Their hands move in a steady pattern. Repairing something simple. Something familiar. Outside, the fields remain unchanged. The plants continue their slow maturation. They no longer grow in sudden visible ways. But they continue to change, beneath the surface of sight. In the afternoon, the farmers return once more. The light has shifted again. Softer now. Longer shadows stretch across the land. A man walks through his field. He notices how the plants have begun to form small clusters of grain. Not fully formed yet, but beginning. He pauses. He looks closely. The shape of the season is changing again. This is a quiet transition. From growth into preparation. He does not interfere. He simply observes. Nearby, another farmer walks along a different section. He carries a small bundle of rope. He uses it to gently support a few leaning plants. Not forcing them upright. Just guiding them lightly. The field responds without resistance. It remains calm. Balanced. As the evening approaches, the fields glow softly under the fading light. The green now holds a golden tint at its edges. The wind moves through it in slow waves. People gather again near their homes. The conversations are calm. Measured. A farmer speaks about the condition of his field. Another responds quietly. There is understanding in their words. No need for explanation beyond what is already shared. An older man sits slightly apart. He watches the horizon. He has seen this stage many times. He knows what comes next. The sky shifts slowly. Gold softens into orange. Orange deepens into blue. And then into night. Stars appear once more. The air cools. The village settles into rest. The fields remain under the night sky. Full. Stable. Continuing their quiet transformation. The plants now hold the first signs of maturity. The flood season is long gone, but its presence remains in every part of the soil, supporting what has grown from it. And beside everything, unchanged and steady, the Nile River continues its endless flow. Carrying time forward. As it always has. The farmers rest, knowing that the next stage is approaching slowly. And that everything, just as always, will happen in its own quiet time. The season begins to feel heavier with time, not in a difficult way, but in a settled way. The fields are no longer simply growing. They are approaching fullness. The green that once felt soft and new now carries a deeper tone, as if the land has quietly finished forming what it needed to form. Everything feels more complete. More still. Morning light returns as always. It moves across the fields without hurry, touching the tops of the plants first, then spreading downward through the rows. The dew is lighter now than in earlier days. Some mornings, it is barely there at all. A man walks through his field. His steps are familiar, almost automatic now. Not because he is careless, but because he knows the land so well that every movement feels natural. He pauses near a section of plants. They are heavier now. The stems hold more weight. The tops begin to lean slightly under their own growth. He reaches out gently and steadies one stalk. Not pulling. Not changing. Just supporting for a moment. This is the quiet turning point of the season. Growth is no longer the main change. Maturation has begun. Across the fields, similar scenes unfold. Farmers walk slowly between rows that now feel closer together. The plants have expanded into their space, filling what was once open ground. The air beneath them feels still and shaded. A woman moves through her section of the field. She observes carefully. She notices where clusters are forming too tightly. Where space needs to be slightly opened. She does not rush to act. She simply marks the understanding in her mind. And moves on. Water is now minimal. Only what is gently held in the soil or carried through the quiet channels below. The flood is no longer present in sight or movement. But its influence remains everywhere. A man walks along a narrow irrigation path. He listens to the sound of water moving slowly beneath the surface. He kneels briefly. Touches the soil. It is still slightly cool. Still holding moisture. He adjusts a small edge. A subtle correction. The flow changes just enough. Then he stands again. And continues. The fields now feel different underfoot. Where once there was soft earth, there is now a more grounded surface. The roots beneath have deepened. The plants above have strengthened. Children move more carefully through the fields now. They no longer run between rows. They walk slowly, respectfully. They observe the changes quietly. The shift in color, the heaviness in the plants, the way the field no longer feels open, but full. At midday, the heat rests over everything again. The fields become still. The farmers step away. They return to shade, to rest. Inside the homes, life continues in its gentle rhythm. Food is prepared. Tools are arranged. Simple tasks are completed without rush. A woman sits near a low wall, sorting small objects. Not seeds now, but items for later use. She moves them into neat groups. Her hands are steady. Her mind calm. Outside, the fields remain quiet. The plants hold their shape under the midday sun. No movement except the faintest shifting of leaves. In the afternoon, the farmers return. The light has softened again. The shadows stretch longer across the ground. A man walks through his field more slowly than before. He notices the changes in structure. The plants now hold small formations where grain is beginning to take shape. Not fully formed, but clearly developing. He pauses. He looks closely. Then he nods slightly to himself. This stage requires patience above all else. Nearby, another farmer moves carefully along a row. He checks the stability of plants that lean too far. He supports them gently, without force. Everything is about balance now. As the evening approaches, the fields take on a deeper tone. The green becomes richer, heavier. The wind moves more slowly through the rows. People gather again near their homes. Their voices remain low. Their conversations simple. A farmer speaks about how the grain is forming. Another listens quietly. There is understanding in their silence. An older farmer sits apart. He watches the horizon again. He knows this stage well. He does not need to speak. The sky changes gradually. Light fades into warm tones. Then into deep blue. Then into night. Stars appear. The air cools. The village settles into rest. The fields remain under the night sky. Full. Quiet. Maturing. The plants now carry the early weight of grain. The flood is long gone, but its gift remains inside the soil that supports everything now growing. And beyond the fields, steady and unchanged, the Nile River continues its endless flow, carrying time forward in its slow, unbroken rhythm. The farmers rest, knowing the cycle is nearing its next quiet turning, and that everything will continue, as it always has, without hurry. The season moves into its deeper stage now, where change is no longer about growth, but about settling. Everything in the fields feels more weighted, more grounded, as if the land has finished speaking and is now simply holding what it has created. The plants stand tall. Not fragile anymore. Not new. They are steady in their place, carrying the early formation of grain within them. Morning light arrives again, soft and patient. It spreads across the fields in long, quiet bands. The air is cooler in the early hours, and the dew that appears is light and brief, fading quickly as the sun begins its slow rise. A man walks into his field. He does not hurry. He never hurries. His eyes move across the rows. He sees the subtle shift that comes with this stage of the season. The plants are no longer simply growing upward. They are beginning to hold something within themselves. Something that takes time to form. He pauses near a cluster. The stalks bend slightly under their own weight. He watches for a moment. Then continues walking. There is no action needed here beyond awareness. Across other fields, similar quiet observations take place. Farmers move slowly between rows, their presence light and careful. They are no longer shaping the field. They are simply moving with it. A woman walks along a narrow path between two sections of plants. She looks closely at the spacing. At the way light falls between the leaves. At the balance of growth. She kneels briefly. Touches the soil. It is firm now. Stable. She stands again and continues forward. The irrigation channels still carry small amounts of water. Not from flood. Not from excess. But from careful direction. The flow is slow, almost like breathing. A man stands at one of these channels. He watches the movement of water for a long time. There is something calming in its consistency. He adjusts nothing today. He simply observes. The fields now feel denser. Not crowded, but full. The space between plants has narrowed naturally as they have grown. The land feels like it is holding its breath. Children walk more quietly now. Their steps are slower. They understand that the field is in a delicate stage. They no longer explore freely among the plants. Instead, they move along the edges. Watching. Learning. At midday, the heat returns. It spreads evenly across the land. The fields become still again. The farmers step away as they always do. They rest in the shade. They drink water slowly. They speak little. Inside the homes, life continues in its simple rhythm. The sound of weaving reeds. The soft preparation of food. The careful arrangement of stored items. A woman sits near a doorway, holding a small bundle of fibers. She twists them together. Slowly forming rope. Her hands move without interruption. Without pause. Outside, the fields remain unchanged in their stillness. The plants hold their form. The grain inside them continues its quiet development. In the afternoon, the farmers return. The light has softened again. The fields stretch out under a warm, fading glow. A man walks deeper into his field. He notices the weight in the stalks has increased slightly since the morning. The grain is becoming more defined. More present. He runs his hand gently along one stem. Then releases it immediately. No disturbance is needed. He continues walking. Slowly. Steadily. Nearby, another farmer checks a narrow water path. He watches how the soil responds to it. Then steps back. Satisfied. The field remains balanced. As the evening approaches, the light turns golden again. It settles over the fields like a soft covering. The plants glow faintly under it. People gather near their homes once more. Their voices are quiet. Their movements unhurried. A farmer speaks about the weight of the plants. Another nods. There is understanding in the exchange. No explanation needed. An older farmer sits apart. His gaze rests on the horizon. He knows this stage well. He remembers its timing. The sky shifts slowly. Gold deepens into orange. Orange fades into blue. Blue becomes night. Stars appear. The air cools. The village settles into rest. The fields remain under the night sky. Full. Stable. Holding their quiet progress. The grain continues to form within each stalk. The flood is long gone, but its presence remains in the soil that now supports the stage of life. And far beyond the fields, unchanged and endless, the Nile River continues its slow, steady flow, carrying time forward without interruption. The farmers rest once more, knowing that the cycle is moving toward its final stages, and that everything will continue, as it always has, in its quiet rhythm. The season feels quieter now, even though the fields are full of life. It is a different kind of fullness. Not the openness of water. Not the emptiness of waiting. But the still, steady presence of ripening grain. Everything feels slower in a deeper way, as if the land itself has settled into a long, patient pause before the final change. Morning arrives gently again. Light spreads across the fields without urgency, touching the tops of the plants and slowly moving downward. The air is slightly warmer now, carrying the weight of the coming heat of the day. A man stands at the edge of his field. He does not enter immediately. He simply looks. The plants are heavier than before. The stalks bend more noticeably now, not from weakness, but from what they carry inside. The grain has formed. It is not yet ready, but it is clearly present. He steps forward slowly. His movement parts the rows gently. The plants shift and then settle again behind him. This stage requires even less action than before. It requires presence more than work. Across other fields, farmers move in the same quiet way. They observe. They walk. They notice. A woman pauses near a section where the plants lean more heavily than others. She looks carefully at the angle of the stalks. She does not interfere. She simply understands what she sees. The field is nearing its final stage of growth. Water is now minimal. Only traces remain in the soil and in the quiet channels beneath the surface. The system that once carried flood water across the land is now almost silent. A man stands beside one of these channels. He watches the stillness of the flow. It is slower than before. Almost resting. He touches the soil lightly. It is warm from the sun. Firm. Stable. He steps away without making changes. The fields now feel dense and full. The plants stand close together, their leaves overlapping in places. There is a sense of completion building in the land. Not an end, but a nearing point. Children move carefully along the edges of the fields. They no longer enter them. They watch from a distance. They notice how the plants sway slightly even when there is no wind. A subtle movement created by their weight. At midday, the heat returns fully. The sun is strong now. The fields become still under it. The farmers step away. They rest in the shade as they always do. Their movements are slower now than earlier in the season. Not from fatigue, but from familiarity. Inside the homes, life continues quietly. Food is prepared in small amounts. Water is shared. Simple tasks are completed without interruption. A woman sits near a low wall, holding dried reeds. She weaves them into a basket. Her fingers move with practiced ease. Each strand placed carefully. Each movement steady. Outside, the fields remain unchanged in their stillness. The grain continues to develop within the stalks. In the afternoon, the farmers return again. The light has shifted lower in the sky. Long shadows stretch across the fields. A man walks slowly through his land. He notices how the heads of grain have begun to form more fully. The stalks now bow more consistently across the field. He does not rush to act. There is nothing to rush. He moves carefully between the rows. His presence is light, almost part of the field itself. Nearby, another farmer observes a section where the plants are slightly more uneven. He watches for a moment, then simply remembers it for later. No immediate change is needed, only awareness. As the evening approaches, the light softens again. The fields glow with a warm, muted gold. The plants stand still under it, as if holding that light quietly within themselves. People gather near their homes. Their conversations are slow, measured. A farmer speaks about the fullness of the grain. Another listens. There is calm understanding between them. An older farmer sits slightly apart. He looks toward the fields without speaking. He knows this stage well. He knows what follows. The sky shifts slowly. Gold fades into orange. Orange deepens into blue. Blue becomes night. Stars appear again. The air cools gently. The village settles into rest. The fields remain under the night sky, heavy with grain, quiet in their readiness. The flood season is far behind now, but its presence remains in everything that has grown from it. In the richness of the soil, in the steady strength of the plants, in the slow, patient work of the farmers. And beyond all of it, constant and unchanged, the Nile River continues its endless flow, carrying time forward, as it always has. The farmers rest again, knowing the cycle is approaching its final turning, and that soon, quietly, the harvest will begin. The season now feels like it is holding its final breath before change. Everything in the fields has reached a quiet fullness. The grain is no longer forming in small stages. It is now complete in its shape, resting inside the stalks, waiting for the right moment. The land feels heavier in a calm way, as if it understands what comes next. Morning light returns once again. It moves slowly across the fields, touching the tops of the plants first. The color of the field has shifted now, no longer just green. There are soft golden tones appearing throughout, subtle signs of maturity spreading across the land. A man stands at the edge of his field. He does not enter immediately. He observes. The stalks are now bowed more deeply. Not broken. Not weak. But carrying weight that they were always meant to hold. He steps forward carefully. The plants part around him and then settle again behind his movement. This is the final stage before harvest. Across the land, other farmers make similar observations. There is no urgency in their movements. Only recognition. The time has arrived, but it is not rushed. It unfolds naturally. A woman walks through her field slowly. She looks closely at the grain heads. She gently lifts one stalk to examine it. She releases it immediately after. No more is needed. The fields feel still. Even when the wind passes through, the movement is softer than before. The plants respond with a slow, heavy sway. Water is now nearly gone from active use. Only traces remain deep in the soil. The irrigation channels sit quiet, their work mostly complete for the season. A man stands beside one of these channels. He looks into it. There is very little movement now. Just the faintest presence of moisture beneath the surface. He does not adjust anything. He simply nods slightly. The fields are readying themselves in silence. Children walk along the outer edges of the farmland. They do not enter the fields anymore. They watch from a distance. They notice the change in color. The deeper gold tones spreading across the crops. At midday, the sun is strong. The fields stand still beneath it. The farmers rest in the shade. Their conversations are quieter than before. Less about growth, more about readiness. Inside the homes, life continues gently. Tools are cleaned. Baskets are checked. Ropes are coiled neatly. A woman sits by a low wall, looking over a small bundle of woven material. Her hands move slowly, tightening the final edges. Everything is prepared with care. Outside, the fields remain unchanged in their stillness. The grain is now fully formed. Heavy. Ready. In the afternoon, the farmers return to the fields once more. The light has softened. Long shadows stretch across the land. A man walks carefully through his field. He gently presses a stalk between his fingers. It bends slightly, then holds. He releases it. He looks across the field. This is the moment they have been waiting for all season. Nearby, another farmer walks in silence. He does not need to check much now. The field speaks for itself. As the evening approaches, the colors of the field deepen. Gold becomes richer. The plants appear almost still in the fading light. People gather again near their homes. Their voices are low. Their movements unhurried. A farmer speaks softly about timing. Another listens and nods. There is agreement without need for long discussion. An older farmer sits quietly. He looks toward the fields with calm certainty. He knows what tomorrow may bring. The sky shifts. Warm gold fades into orange. Orange dissolves into deep blue. Blue settles into night. Stars appear again. The air cools. The village becomes still. The fields stand under the night sky. Heavy with grain. Completely formed. Waiting. The flood season is no longer visible in the land. But its influence remains in everything. In the richness of the soil. In the strength of the harvest. In the steady rhythm of life that has continued without interruption. And far beyond the fields, eternal and unchanged, the Nile River continues to flow. Carrying time forward in its endless, quiet movement. The farmers rest once more. Knowing that the next stage is very near. And that soon, in the same gentle rhythm as everything before it, the harvest will begin. The night feels deeper now, as if the land itself is holding still in anticipation. Nothing in the fields is moving quickly anymore. Even the wind, when it comes, feels careful, brushing through the crops without disturbing them too much. Everything is ready. Not loudly ready, but quietly so. Morning arrives with a softer kind of light. The sky is pale at first, then slowly warms as the sun begins to rise. The fields glow faintly, not green now, but a mixture of gold, amber, and deep earth tones. A man stands at the edge of his field. He does not hesitate today. He steps forward. Slowly. Deliberately. This is the beginning of harvest. The first cut is always careful. He lifts a simple cutting tool. The motion is smooth. One stalk separates from the rest with a quiet sound that disappears almost immediately into the air. He pauses. He holds it for a moment. The grain rests in his hand. Heavy. Full. He places it gently into a basket. Across the fields, others begin the same work. Not all at once. Not in a rush. But in a slow spreading pattern, like the beginning of a wave moving through the land. A woman kneels in her section of the field. She gathers a small bundle of stalks. Her movements are steady. Each cut is followed by a careful placement. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is hurried. The field begins to change as the harvest progresses. What was once a continuous stretch of standing grain now shows soft openings where plants have been gathered. Children watch from the edges. They are quiet now, more observant than active. They see the transformation happening slowly in front of them. At midday, the sun rests heavily over the land. The farmers pause. They step away from the field and rest in the shade. Their hands are steady. Their movements unhurried. Even in work, there is calm. Inside the village, activity continues in a different form. Grain is brought in slowly. Baskets are filled and carried. The sound of movement is soft but constant. A woman sits near a flat surface where harvested grain is placed. She begins to separate it. Not quickly. Not mechanically. But with a calm, repetitive motion. The grain falls into neat piles. Each one carefully formed. Outside, the fields continue to be harvested in sections. One part at a time. Never all at once. A man walks through a partially harvested area. He looks at the remaining stalks. They stand in uneven clusters now, some already gathered, others still waiting. He does not rush. There is no need. The rhythm of the harvest is steady enough on its own. In the afternoon, the light grows softer again. The fields shift in appearance as more is gathered. The golden tones now appear in bundles rather than standing rows. The land feels more open, more breathable. A woman ties together a bundle of harvested stalks. Her hands move with practiced ease. She tightens the rope gently, then sets it aside. Nearby, others do the same. Bundles begin to line the edges of the fields. Quiet rows of gathered grain. The air carries a faint scent of dry earth and ripening grain. Warm. Familiar. As the evening approaches, the pace slows again. Work does not stop, but it softens. The sun lowers. Light spreads across the partially cleared fields. Long shadows stretch between the remaining stalks. People gather near their homes once more. Their voices are low. Their conversations simple. A farmer speaks about the fullness of the harvest. Another listens quietly. There is no excitement in their words. Only understanding. An older farmer sits slightly apart. He watches the fields. He has seen this moment many times. He knows its quiet meaning. The sky changes slowly. Gold fades into orange. Orange fades into deep blue. Blue becomes night. Stars appear again. The air cools. The village settles into rest. The fields remain under the night sky. Partially gathered. Quietly transformed. The flood season feels far away now. But it still lives within everything that has grown. In the grain now being gathered. In the soil that gave it life. In the steady rhythm that carried the entire cycle forward. And beyond the fields, constant and unchanging, the Nile River continues its slow and endless flow. Carrying time forward, as it always has. The farmers rest once more. Knowing the harvest will continue in the days ahead. And that life, as always, will move gently onward in its quiet rhythm. The harvest continues in its steady, unhurried way. Each day brings a little more change to the fields, but never all at once. The land does not empty suddenly. It opens slowly, like a quiet book being turned page by page. What was once a sea of grain is now a landscape of gathered bundles and standing patches still waiting their turn. Everything moves at the same gentle pace. Morning light returns with its familiar softness. It spreads across the partially harvested fields, touching both what remains standing and what has already been cut. The contrast between the two is calm, not sharp. A man walks through his field. His steps are slower now. Not from tiredness, but from familiarity with the rhythm of the work. He bends and gathers another bundle. The stalks are dry at the top, heavy in the middle. They fall together easily in his hands. He ties them with a simple rope, then sets them upright with others. Across the land, similar movements continue. Farmers move through their fields in quiet coordination, each working at their own pace, yet following the same natural rhythm. A woman carries a bundle toward the edge of the field. Her steps are even. The weight is balanced against her shoulder. She does not stop until she reaches the designated place where harvested grain is collected. She places it down carefully. No sound of urgency. Only placement. The fields now look different each day. More open spaces appear. More gathered rows form along the edges. The land is gradually returning to a simpler shape. Children help in small ways. They carry lighter bundles, or adjust small stacks. They do not work quickly, but they participate. Their presence is quiet, part of the rhythm rather than separate from it. At midday, the sun grows stronger again. The farmers step away from the fields. They rest as they always do. Inside the village, the sound of grain processing continues softly. Bundles are brought in and placed on flat surfaces. Grain is separated from stalks with slow, repetitive motion. A woman sits near a wide woven mat. She shakes a bundle gently. The grain falls in a soft, steady pattern. It gathers in a small pile. Her movements do not change quickly. Each repetition feels the same as the last. And that sameness brings calm. Outside, the fields continue to open. What remains standing is now clearly marked for the next day's work. A man walks along the edge of the field. He looks across the remaining grain. It is thinner now. More spaced out. He nods slightly to himself. The work is progressing as expected. In the afternoon, the light shifts again. Long shadows stretch across the partially cleared land. The contrast between harvested and unharvested sections becomes more visible. The wind moves gently through what remains standing. The plants sway softly, like they are slowly saying goodbye to their season. A woman pauses in the middle of a row. She holds a few stalks in her hand, then releases them. She does not rush. She simply continues. As evening approaches, the fields glow in warm tones again. Gold and brown mix across the landscape. The harvested bundles reflect the fading light softly. People gather near their homes. The conversations remain calm, measured. A farmer speaks about how much has been gathered. Another listens and responds quietly. There is satisfaction, but no excitement. Only continuation of work. An older farmer sits in the same place as before. He watches the horizon. He knows the harvest is halfway through. He says nothing. The sky changes slowly again. Warm light fades into orange. Orange dissolves into deep blue. Blue settles into night. Stars appear. The air cools. The village becomes still once more. The fields rest under the night sky. Half gathered. Half standing. In between two stages. The flood season is no longer visible in the landscape. But its influence is still present in everything around them. In the soil that produced this harvest. In the rhythm that guided each stage. In the patience that shaped the entire year. And far beyond the fields, steady and unchanging, the Nile River continues its endless flow, carrying time forward without pause. The farmers rest again, knowing the harvest is not yet complete, but also knowing it will continue in its own time, as everything in this land always does. The work begins to slow now, not because there is less to do, but because most of what needed doing has already been done. The fields are no longer full in the way they once were. They are now open in wide, quiet sections, where the harvest has already passed through like a gentle, steady wave. What remains standing is only a small part of what was once there, and even that now feels like it is waiting. Morning light arrives as it always does. Soft, unrushed. It spreads across the land and touches everything equally: the harvested bundles, the empty patches of soil, and the few remaining stalks that still stand in the fields. A man walks through his land one more time. His steps are calm, familiar, almost silent against the earth. He no longer moves with urgency. There is nothing left that demands speed, only completion. He looks across the field. Where once there was dense growth, there is now openness again. The soil is visible in wide stretches. The land feels lighter, as if it has exhaled after a long season of holding life. Nearby, other farmers continue their final tasks. Small adjustments. Final gatherings of remaining bundles. Quiet checks of tools and spaces. A woman ties the last few stalks into a bundle. Her hands move slowly. Not because she is tired, but because there is no need to rush the ending. She places the bundle with the others, then pauses. Just for a moment. The field is almost complete now. Not in growth, but in harvest. Children stand at the edge of the land. They do not enter anymore. They simply watch. They see the change clearly now. The field that once seemed endless is now something gathered, shaped, and finished for the season. At midday, the sun shines over nearly empty stretches of earth. The farmers rest beneath shade as they always do. But the feeling is different now. Lighter. Quieter. Inside the village, grain is stored carefully. Large containers are filled slowly. Each one sealed with care. Each one representing the work of many months. A woman closes the lid of a storage jar. She presses it gently into place. Then steps back. Everything is being set in order now. Not hurried. Just final. In the afternoon, a man walks alone through the last remaining section of his field. The plants here are sparse. Almost entirely gathered already. Only traces remain. He does not cut anything. He simply walks. The wind moves gently across the empty spaces. It feels softer now. More open. As evening approaches, the light spreads low across the land one final time. The fields reflect it in warm, quiet tones. There is no movement except the slow shift of shadows. People gather near their homes as they always do. But the conversations are shorter now. Quieter. A farmer speaks softly about the season ending. Another nods. There is nothing more to add. Only understanding. An older farmer sits in silence. He looks toward the fields for a long time. He has seen this ending many times. And still, he says nothing. The sky begins to change. Gold fades into orange. Orange softens into deep blue. Blue becomes night. Stars appear above the land. The air is cool now. Still. The village settles into quiet rest. Not the rest of exhaustion, but the rest that comes after completion. The fields lie open under the night sky. harvested, calm, empty in places, full in memory. The flood season is no longer visible. The waters have long returned to their riverbed. But nothing here exists without it. The soil carries it. The harvest carries it. The rhythm of life carries it. And beyond everything, constant and endless, the Nile River continues its slow, steady flow. As it always has. As it always will. Not as an ending, but as a return. To the same cycle. To the same quiet rhythm. To the same gentle movement of time that never truly stops. The farmers rest now. The land rests with them. And the season slowly fades not into silence, but into memory. Soft, calm, and still.